Welcome back to Business Day. Joining us now is Mark Cuban, billionaire investor, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, and he has a new app out called Cyberdust. Great to see you, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you're describing this app, Cyberdust, as a combination of sort of WhatsApp and a Snapchat. So how is it similar? How is it different?
Well, WhatsApp is a messaging application that really is there to replace texting. But the key, whether you use WhatsApp or traditional texting, once you hit send, you lose complete control of the message. You don't know if the recipient is going to save it. You don't know if they're going to forward it. You're going to know if they're going to show it to somebody. And what happens is that, particularly in business, even the most innocent comment or even, a simple idea that you thought was being private, when it's shown to somebody else can lose its context and create problems. And it's even worse in a personal environment where you might say something about somebody, they show it. So bottom line is, it really doesn't make any sense in an era when, people are trying to reduce their digital footprint, not to have an app that just doesn't delete those texts after they've been read. And that's exactly what Cyberdust does. When you send a message using Cyberdust, once the person on the other side opens it up, 30 seconds later, it's deleted. It's gone forever. We don't keep it on our servers. It's not cached on your phone. It's not cached on the recipient's phone. It's just gone forever. And I think, again, people are working hard to reduce their digital footprint, and that's important, and that's why I actually had this app created.
Now, presumably, Cyberdust will be used for good means, but are you concerned that it may be used for nefarious means?
No, because bad guys are going to do bad things no matter what. And really think of it as replicating a face-to-face conversation. And so if somebody's really trying to avoid everything, that's what they're going to do. But in this particular case, it's for the 99.99% of the population that says, particularly for kids, no matter, I have young kids, and for them, they're good kids, and I trust them, but all it takes is, one silly sentence in a text, and some little boy keeps my daughter's text and shows it around. There's, the reality is, or one, flippant comment about a business associate that gets shown to somebody else. There's just so many things that, you want to try to get back when you send a text, that it's just so much safer to put yourself in a position where once you hit send, you have control of that text and it's gone after it's been read.
Mark, you were very vocal about the case the SEC brought against you that you ultimately won. You were vocal about their actions and the measures that they took. Was any of that an inspiration for this app, Cyberdust?
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm glad you asked. Actually, that was the full inspiration. It was amazing how emails and messages that I had sent years ago, if I said the sky was blue, they said, no, you're just saying that to hide the fact that you really think the sky was gray. And whatever context the SEC wanted to apply to a message, they did. And so it was just a lesson learned on my part that it's far better to have as close to a zero digital footprint as you can when it comes to your messaging, because in the event you're in a lawsuit, there's nothing to discover. The messages are gone. In the event that you have to fight the government, it's an adversarial situation here in the United States, and so that they're going to try to use anything you say out of context against you. And since that's what happened to me, that's the full reason why I initiated one of my companies to create Cyberdust.
Mark, let's talk about the technology in general. It's becoming very hot again in terms of IPOs and certain stocks doing very well. Is there any comparison to be made to the late 90s, or is this a completely different, less frothy time?
Well, it's certainly less frothy. Back in the 90s, it was crazy. You get into a cab and people wanted to talk stocks. You got into an elevator, people were talking stocks. You sit down, in the bathroom and somebody in the stall next to you is on the phone talking stocks. It was just outrageous it was like the topic du jour. You don't see that now, and I think, going back to the SEC and its Canadian equivalents, they haven't built confidence in the market yet, and so traders will trade, and I think that's why you've seen a lot of frothiness with IPOs and 169% increases and things like that. But I don't think it's a bubble. I don't think it's widespread, and I think it's very limited in the people who are playing it.
You invest in a lot of technology companies, a lot of them startups. You invested in a lot of companies through the Shark Tank TV show. If you could name maybe two or three things that's incredibly important for entrepreneurs and startups to get it right, what are they?
First of all, you have to know your business better than anybody else. It's amazing to me how I can walk into certain companies, particularly, early stage or startup companies, and using my experience, just pepper them with questions, and they don't know the answers. If you don't know everything there is to know about your company and your industry, there's somebody else out there that does, and they're your competition, and you're not going to be able to compete, or you're not going to do a good job competing. So knowing your business, knowing your industry is number one. The second element is you have to sell. There's never been a company in the history of companies that's ever survived very long without sales. And I think it's amazing to me sometimes how companies get started and the CEO, the founders, they aren't excited about selling their product. If you're not excited about selling your product, how is anybody going to be excited about buying it? And I'd say probably the third thing is people don't realize how much work is involved. You really got to wake up and grind. In my position, I try to compete with people a lot younger, a lot smarter, a lot faster. And so I feel like I've got to work harder. And I think entrepreneurs and startups have got to have that same attitude that when you start a company, it's not like, okay, things slow down. Things speed up. You've actually got to put in more time, and you've got to work harder than probably any job you've ever had. So I'd say those three elements are probably the most important things for startups and early stage companies to keep an eye on.
Mark, in doing my research, it was almost exhausting looking at the number of companies that you're involved with. You're juggling something like over...
Trust me, it's exhausting to me too.
I can imagine. Well, so how do you do it? How do you wake up during in the morning and figure it all out? Where are you going to pay attention to, and how do you do it?
I don't do calls and I don't do meetings unless someone's writing me a check or I absolutely have to. So I drive everybody either if it's short messages and critical or confidential information, I'll drive them to Cyberdust and they have to text message me on Cyberdust, or I'll drive them to email if it's something that I want to have a longer term record of, or at least for a period of time, and that it gives me more time to respond to it. So between those two means of communications, that's pretty much how I communicate, and that allows me to really engage with 80 plus companies on a weekly basis.
And just lastly here, Mark, I'm wondering, you seem like the type of guy who's very much in the moment and enjoying his life, but I'm wondering how much you think about leaving some kind of a legacy, or are you competing with other billionaire entrepreneurs and that kind of thing?
No, me versus, I don't think about that at all. I mean, honestly, my legacy is my children. I get more concerned about the lives they'll live, whether they'll be healthy, whether they'll be happy, whether they'll, have their own legacies rather than being my son or my daughter or my wife's son or my wife's daughter. That's the legacy I'm concerned about, because that's really what we leave behind. Yeah, people are going to be able to Google me for now and forevermore, whatever search engines or whatever ways we communicate. So what? If my kids are happy and their kids hopefully are happy, and that's the legacy, that this is the Cuban way and this is the culture of the Cuban family, then I'll be smiling down from the heavens with a big old grin on my face.
All right, sounds great. Thanks for taking the time today, Mark. We appreciate it, and good luck with Cyberdust.
Thanks, and you can download it from the Canadian iPhone store right now. CYBER space DUST. And thanks for having me.
All right, always selling. Sounds good. Thanks, Mark.
Always.
Okay, Mark Cuban, our thanks to him, a fascinating guy. That is it for Business Day. Thanks so much for joining us. If you missed anything, you can check it out on bnn.ca. We'll see you next time. Take care.